What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, it's the Game Week 32 preview. So we're going to go through some of the big questions and topics that you've put to me. And it's a Friday deadline, so we're just going to jump straight into it, get this out as soon as possible. Now, Tierney replacements came up quite a bit, right? He's fairly well owned within the community. These are the more expensive picks. I'm going to come on to the cheaper picks around Tierney's price in just a second. Now, this is pretty obvious. We don't need to spend too long on these defenders. They're all really good, okay? The best three, of course, Cancelo, Robertson and Reece James. If you already own Trent Alexander-Arnold, if you don't, then you should probably be looking at him as well. And I think not much has changed this week since I last spoke about Tierney. There's a lot of teams obviously still in Europe. We'll come on to Chelsea in just a minute. The league is still wide open for Liverpool and Man City, so I wouldn't see a huge amount of rotation in most of their games. I'm not saying it can't happen, but I think it's going to be more limited than it would be in a normal season where the gap at the top is quite big. So that's all well and good. I think you don't need to rush out to buy a Liverpool or Man City defender this week. If you've got 2 free transfers, for example, and you have to use one, then fair enough. If it enables you to make another move, fair enough. But ultimately, you don't have to rush out to bring one in this week. I do want to touch on Chelsea, though. I do think Reece James and Rudiger, wherever you put them in the order of bringing players in, right? If you had Cancelo above Reece James, for example, I think that gap is definitely closed because they are 3-1 down to Real Madrid. Now, crazy things can happen in football. Chelsea could absolutely overturn that in the Champions League and still go through. But you got to imagine that Real Madrid will see that out. In which case, James and Rudiger, okay, it's Arsenal in Game Week 33, it's West Ham in 34. Then they got back-to-back doubles. We should probably be looking at them a little bit more. So if you were on the fence about buying Reece James, for example, I actually think now he's a much better option this week. There is, of course, the caveat that he could get benched against Southampton, but Chelsea need a win, right? I think they're going to play a fairly full-strength squad because I think deep down Tuchel knows now that Champions League game is going to be difficult. I don't think he's going to write it off. He's not going to come out and say that as well, of course, but deep down he'll know that. And so I think there's going to be... I'm a James owner, and I'm a bit more confident now about him starting against Southampton. Obviously, if you already own him, you could go Rudiger as well. So they are... You want to buy any of these players on the screen now, they're all really good, right? They're all really good. You just don't need to rush out and buy Liverpool and City right now. Let's quickly talk about players around Tierney's price. Now, it's difficult in these videos to go through every single different chip scenario, so I'll try and keep it brief. Gabriel, Shah and Maguire to a certain extent are players where you're thinking a bit more shorter term. You're thinking, right, Arsenal got Brighton at home this week, Shah's got Wolves at home, Maguire's got Everton away, and then they've got a double game week in Game Week 33, but you wouldn't necessarily want to hold them too much after that, especially like Harry Maguire, probably Shah to a certain extent as well, although he is only 4.3 million. So if you had to keep him on the bench, it wouldn't be the worst thing, right? If you can, fill up your other defender slots with the players you want. A lot of people are looking to go to 4 and 5 at the back, so Shah might get in the way. So just consider that. With Gabriel, it's a little bit different because he does have another double game week to come. I still don't quite know how much emphasis to put on Tierney being out for the season, and it looks like Partey's going to be out for this week as well. How much is that going to weaken Arsenal? They've played a very kind of set 11, and now they're not going to be able to. That would maybe put me off Gabriel a little bit. But if you're wildcarding in Game Week 34, then I still think Gabriel is a good option. If you're not wildcarding in Game Week 34 and you still want an Arsenal defender, I would possibly consider Ben White unless you've got really high team value because he's 0.7 million cheaper. Yes, Gabriel's goal threat is better, but I think if it's a player that you're going to want to bench at times, it's probably just better having Ben White. Elsewhere, I think Doherty's a really solid pick. I know there's only one double game week, and the double game week is quite hard. It's Liverpool and Arsenal, but the games outside of that are pretty good. And to be honest, like Doherty's in my team, and I keep thinking about him, like, how am I going to get Cancelo, Laporte, Robertson, James, Rudiger, etc. But I've got to be honest, apart from that Game Week 36 fixture, I'm happy to play him almost, not quite, as an equal to most of those players, and he's very cheap as well. So if you haven't got Doherty, I still think he's a pretty good option. I think there is probably a case to be made to target double game week players for 33, etc. But if you're not keen on them, or maybe you're free hitting in 33, I still think Doherty is a really good option to bring in if you've got a Spurs slot spare. The other options is kind of, and obviously, by the way, like I can't list every single player from every single team. So Gabriel is like Arsenal defender, Castagna is Leicester defender. Now Justin didn't play in Europe against PSV yesterday; he didn't start. So there is a good chance that he will start this weekend. But with every Leicester player right now, there is possibly going to be some rotation. I think the fact that they drew 0-0 doesn't really help either, because it's going to be another full strength squad next week when they play them in the second leg, which means there could be rotation this week. So it's really tricky. Like Castagna for 5.3 million. Okay, his attacking numbers aren't great this season, but he's not played all that much. We know he's a pretty decent attacking fullback. I do quite like him. I like Justin as well, but I like them all if they're going to play. I just don't know if they're going to. I think if you've got no chips, it might be worth the risk, right? You've got 3 double game weeks to come from them. And if they go out of Europe as well, that just makes them even better. If they go through in Europe, though, it makes them carry on being a risk. So it depends how much kind of appetite you've got for risk. But Castagna is probably the best option. And very close to Justin, I would say. If you want to go really cheap, then Fofana at 4.3 million could be a really good option as well. But again, he's just played in Europe. Is he definitely going to play this weekend? I don't know. Amati could come in and they could just hope to get something in the league. They haven't really got a huge amount to play for in the league, apart from position, which I know sounds obvious. But what I mean is they're not going to get Europe at this point. So how much are they going to focus on that? I would say probably not a lot. And then Mitchell, Crystal Palace, double game week coming up. They got some pretty good fixtures. He's a nice, cheap option. But again, if he's someone that you're mostly going to bench, I'd probably just get Shah and go for the Wolves game this week and then double game week in 33. But there's a lot of options. There really is. I've got Tierney. I'm thinking if I free hit in 33, which I don't think I'm going to, by the way, but if I was, I'd probably get Rudiger to go alongside James. But long term, if not, my aim is probably just to get Cancelo, to be honest. Right, we're going to go through a ton of questions. First one, is Kulusevski to a Leicester midfielder until the end of the season a good or bad move? Now, one of the themes of this video, and pretty much every single video until Europe's done and we get to the end of the season, is going to be minutes, okay? Now, right now, I don't know if a Leicester midfielder is better than Kulusevski. I know they've got the double game week in 33, but I'm not 100% confident that both of these players will play both games. And even if they do start both, they could have their minutes managed. And again, like I was talking about with Doherty, the Spurs fixtures are just pretty good. Kulusevski looks pretty nailed right now. His minutes are good. Conte's not changing the Spurs team very often at all. So like I said, Kulusevski, Son and Kane is the front three right now. And I wouldn't expect that to change. Villa away is not too bad. I mean, it's not an easy game. It's not too bad. Same with Brighton, I would say. Then it's Brentford, which is pretty good. Leicester at home, if they're still rotating, I wouldn't be worried about that. Then they have got the double. And again, I think we need to be careful with double game week 36. Yes, there is an ideal team. But if you got to that game week and you had to play Kulusevski, it's not the end of the world. But yes, Barnes and Maddison, if they played the same minutes in game week 36, they got 2 home games, they probably are better options than Kulusevski. So I would be in a position with this where I have considered it myself. It is a possibility that I do it, but I would really want to do it next week, knowing whether Leicester are in or out of Europe. Right? I think if you do it this week, it's a little bit risky. But if you could save the transfer, if that works into your strategy and plans, you could do it next week. If Leicester are out of Europe, I will strongly consider doing Kulusevski to Maddison or Barnes myself. In fact, I probably will do it, right? Depending on what other moves I make. But I just think until that happens, I'm just not convinced they're definitely going to play. Like, they've basically got 3 fixtures the next 2 game weeks. Are they going to start all 3? I would have my doubts. If they only start 2, well, that's the same as Kulusevski, and he's looked brilliant so far. Alright, so this is just general thoughts on Chelsea players, and what I said earlier about Tierney replacements still stands. The fact that they've lost 3-1 to Real Madrid makes me think it's very unlikely they're going to overturn that. They're probably going to go out, and that makes them better FPL options. And if you agree with the kind of thinking that they're going to play a fairly full-strength squad against Southampton, this is a pretty good week to be looking to bring them in. I've even seen people talk about maybe Reece James' captaincy again this week. I actually spoke about captaincy in my 888 Sport article, which I've linked in the description below, among other things. Let me know what you think about Reece James' captaincy in the comments below. Is that something you would do? I don't know if I'd be 100% sure he would start, but let me know. But yeah, generally, really like them. because of that result. I think we've been waiting for that. We've been waiting for Europe for a lot of teams, right? The only thing is, the Southampton game's good. Then it's Arsenal, West Ham. They're not easy fixtures. Obviously, this is Chelsea. They got a good chance of winning both games. They could definitely score, keep clean sheets in those games. But they are probably two of the more difficult fixtures they've got for the rest of the season. But from 35 onwards, it looks really good. Everton, really good game to have right now. At some point, maybe they'll try and start to dig in, make it really difficult for their opponents. But right now, the evidence is that they're in the bottom, like fighting relegation because they're bad. And I'm not sure that's going to change by the time they play Chelsea. Then it's a double of Wolves at home and Leeds away, which is really good. The next double is Man United away, Leicester at home. And then they end with Watford at home as well. So as a general rule, I like Chelsea players. Best defender, still Reece James. Best backup is still Rudiger if you're going to go for two. I wouldn't completely write Mendy off as a goalkeeper option either. And this is all going to come down to how many defenders you can fit in that you want. So for example, for my team, in fact, I'll just bring it up really quickly. So I've got Trent, James and Doherty. And like I said earlier, I'm really happy to play Doherty most weeks. And if I add Cancelo to that, how am I going to fit in Rudiger as well? Whereas I've got Sarr on the bench, and I'm not saying I need to make that move right now, but at some point Sarr to Mendy to get that second Chelsea defender is something that I'm considering. I don't think he is completely immune from rotation, right? Kepa could play at some point, but again, if they go out of Europe, I think that's less likely. The only thing they'd have then is the FA Cup semi-final, and then possibly the FA Cup final if they beat Crystal Palace. And then it's just down to the same old question we've been asking ourselves for ages, which is Havertz versus Mount. Again, Havertz is the number 9, quite an exciting pick, looks pretty decent. I can't kind of get away from the fact that Mason Mount's numbers have been good all season, expected goals, expected assists. So I like them both. I think if you want to go for the more exciting pick, like it's nice to get a midfielder that's out of position playing number 9. So Havertz, Reece James, Rudiger are probably your best bets. But outside of that, I think you're looking at Mendy or Mount. And yeah, I think that Champions League game has kind of changed everything. You just don't want to necessarily go mad, triple up this week, and then realise that they've beaten Real Madrid and there's going to be loads of rotation going forward. That's the only thing I would slightly worry about. But like I said, it's very unlikely. Nice and simple. Best Man United attacker out of Bruno or Ronaldo. Again, minutes-wise, if you said to me right now, for Game Week 32, Game Week 33, Everton, Norwich, Liverpool, obviously they've got the double game week in 33, that Ronaldo's going to play the same minutes as Bruno, then I would just go for him because I think his goal threat is superior, he's on penalties, and it's as simple as that. The problem is, Ronaldo, even without Europe, I still think is slightly susceptible to rotation. Now, I'm sitting here thinking, well, the Norwich game is going to be a full week after the Everton game, so he should play that. And what are the chances that he misses Liverpool? I think it's quite slim, but we have seen Fernandes line up as kind of a number 9, false 9, etc. And Ronaldo has missed out. So that's my only worry. Also, I did see on Twitter last night, and obviously you can wait for press conferences to get this confirmed, that Ronaldo hadn't been training. Now, I'm not sure, like, players don't train at times, right, for recovery and stuff like that. So just because a player hasn't trained doesn't mean they're injured, but it is worth thinking about that and waiting to see what Ranić says. Right now, I do favour Bruno because I just don't think he misses any minutes from the next 3 games. Like, he might get an early sub in one of them, but it's very unlikely to be against Everton, I think, because unless they're absolutely smashing them like 4 or 5-0, and then it's another week break to Norwich, and he's not going to miss Liverpool. So right now, short answer is I favour Bruno, but if you've got a sneaking suspicion that Ronaldo starts all 3 games and gets good minutes, I think there's a high chance he outscores him. So lots of people thinking of doing this. Some people have already done it early as well this week. Salah to Fernandes, is it worth doing? Now again, caveat, if you're wildcarding in Game Week 34, I can see why you might want to do it. I think the kind of short answers are, I do think for Game Week 32 and 33 combined, Fernandes can outscore Salah, right? So I think that's a thing that can happen. But if you're using 2 transfers to get rid of him and then bring him back because you don't have a wild card, then that makes it a lot more tricky. Even if you're going to captain Fernandes in Game Week 33, I'm still not quite sure on paper that it's absolutely worth it. That being said, how can I sit here when I'm thinking of doing Son to Fernandes next week for captaincy? How can I sit here and say that's an okay move, but getting rid of Salah isn't? It is worth noting that I own Son and Salah, and I'm thinking about taking Son out before I take Salah out. So that kind of tells you what I think Salah can do over the next couple of weeks. So I don't know. Overall, I think it's an okay move, but I wouldn't be completely shocked if it backfired, right? Because Salah's just that good. I know his FPL points haven't been great recently, out of form, etc., etc. But this is a guy that can be back in form very, very quickly. And I think although on paper Man City, Liverpool could be cagey, I just don't think either team are going to play like that. He's obviously on penalties as well, which Fernandes isn't if Ronaldo plays. And then Man United at home ain't a bad fixture for Salah, and they're going to absolutely go for that as well at Anfield. So I think it's a move that I would probably do if I had no other way to get Fernandes. But on paper, I think it's absolutely one of those things that could backfire. Just really quickly while we're talking about Salah, I see people thinking about getting rid of him and then not getting him back, and some people going for De Bruyne instead. I get the thinking. Man City's fixtures are really good, but I think we're putting too much emphasis on the form thing with Salah. Like, we're all saying Everton's this really great fixture. You're thinking about bringing in Fernandes for Everton. Well, guess who plays Everton in Game Week 34? It's Salah. Newcastle away is not a bad fixture. Then it's a double game week. Are you really going without Salah for a double game week? I don't care if De Bruyne's got Wolves at home and Leeds away or whatever the fixture is in Game Week 36. It's actually Newcastle, isn't it? So it'd be Newcastle for Man City and then possibly Wolves or West Ham. Is that better than Salah? Even though the fixtures are maybe a little bit tougher, Spurs at home, Wolves away, Villa away, I don't think it is. Then it's Southampton, which you can't see, and then it's Wolves at home last day of the season. Like, I just think this idea of going without Salah for the rest of the season is a little bit crazy. Like, all I'll say is everybody is out of form until they're not, and I wouldn't want to be the person betting on when Salah gets back in form. I think De Bruyne is a really good option for the rest of the season because he is fairly nailed as well. But when it comes down to goal threat and stuff like that, Salah's on penalties too. I just don't think there's much competition between the two in terms of who's going to score more. And from 34 onwards, my money is absolutely on Salah. This is quite specific, and I assume most people now at this point, if they're going to own Saka, already do. But who is the best midfielder to buy out of Maddison, Barnes and Saka? I'll order them. I think it's Saka first, then it's Maddison, then it's Barnes. They're all pretty close. But I just think the fact that Leicester are still in Europe and they could easily go through after the next game just puts Saka ahead. He's not going to miss any games. He's barely going to miss any minutes. Double in 33, double in 36 as well. Yes, the fixtures aren't perfect, but at least he's got one decent fixture in both of those doubles. And I just think in general, like, Arsenal probably slightly better. I know they're going to be weaker now. You know, how long's Partey going to be out for? Tierney's going to miss the season. But I'd still put Saka slightly ahead. If this was a question for next week and Leicester were out of Europe, then I'd probably put the Leicester boys slightly ahead as well. So it depends when you have to buy them. If it's this week, I would just play it. Safe's not the right word, but I would just go for Saka, right? I love the guy. If it's next week, then maybe we can have another conversation and perhaps you go for Maddison instead. The reason I've gone for Maddison over Barnes is just a minutes thing. If they're going to both play similar minutes, it's simple. Maddison's numbers are better this season. And when I watch Leicester games, it always feels like Barnes is more likely to get a goal. But looking at the numbers, that's not the case, and I would always trust them. I would say, well, maybe my eye test just isn't as good as I think it is. So that's the order I'd put them in this week. Saka, Maddison, Barnes. Leicester go out of Europe next week. Maybe you could go for Maddison over Saka. I've probably saved the hardest question until last because it's one of those you don't really want to have an opinion on because it could massively backfire. So do we start our Arsenal defender over Liverpool and Man City defenders? Now, I was going to do this. I was going to start Tierney over Trent Alexander-Arnold. It really depends. Well, I don't want to sit on the fence here, but it really depends how much you now think Arsenal are weaker because of Partey, which we'll have to wait and see what Arteta says, but it looks like he's probably going to be out this weekend. And obviously Tierney missing, just how bad are they going to be? We shouldn't just say that Arsenal were really bad against Palace. Palace were also good. And I think Brighton at home is definitely an easier fixture. Brighton haven't been fantastic recently. And I think there's every chance that Arsenal could get a clean sheet. I guess it depends. Like, if it was Ben White versus Cancelo, I'm thinking, would I really bench Cancelo or Trent for Ben White? Possibly not. Gabriel, they've got a little bit more goal threat. I mean, it really is them, right? It's Gabriel and White versus kind of Trent and Cancelo. I don't know. I feel like Arsenal's chances of a clean sheet are pretty good, and I just don't see Liverpool or Man City keeping a clean sheet. If you do, then obviously you play the more attacking player. I don't think you lose out too much if you're just worried about effective ownership or the fact that, you know, your mini-league rivals are all going to play Cancelo, etc. Just playing them. Yeah, it really depends on how much, you know, that you think Tierney is going to affect them going forward. I think there's a pretty good chance Arsenal still get a clean sheet this week. So on paper, yes, you probably should play Ben White or Gabriel over Cancelo, over Trent, and yes, that sounds absolutely scary. And if you think that's going to make it difficult to get through the weekend having to watch that, then just play the one that makes it easier, right? FPL is supposed to be fun. Go for Trent, go for Cancelo. This one's just as hard. Would you start Weghorst over Trent, Robertson, Cancelo or Laporte? I'm just going to say yes. I think it's Norwich for an attacker. I think you have to... In most scenarios, you have to play them. Again, like if you think that Liverpool or Man City can keep a clean sheet, then yes, absolutely play your Liverpool or Man City player. I think it's a bit different for Laporte or Van Dijk as centre backs. I think it's more exciting with Trent, Robertson, Cancelo, etc. But I think I probably would play Weghorst. I'm just going to say it, right? The same as when you asked me about Coutinho and Rafinha. Rafinha had just blanked. Coutinho had smashed it. I stuck to my guns. I stuck with Rafinha. I'm going to stick with Weghorst again. If it goes wrong, it goes wrong. But I just think at any point in the season, having to play Liverpool or having to play Man City, it's your hardest game of the season, and this is it for both of those teams. For Weghorst, I know he's blanked so many games. I know he's not shooting very much, but surely he gets some opportunities against Norwich. So I'm going to stick with my boy Weghorst. I'm going to start him. I would start him over any of those players, I think. For what it's worth, I was playing 3-5-2 this week anyway, and originally when Tierney was in, when he was fit, or when I thought he was fit, I was playing him against ahead of Trent, and I was playing Weghorst ahead of Trent as well. So I guess my actions will speak louder than words. Right now I'm playing Trent and Weghorst because my team's just rubbish, but yeah, I'm going to stick with Weghorst. Let me know what you think about that in the comments. I don't even need to tell you to let me know because you're going to let me know anyway. Comments below, give it a like, hit subscribe. I'll be back for the deadline stream later. Thank you very much for watching.